The unthinkable just happened, and it has an entire town on fire. Mayor Tiffany Henyard, once the face of power and influence in her community, was forced out of her own house in front of stunned neighbors. But here's the shocking part. Instead of sympathy, instead of outrage, the crowd outside didn't cry or protest. They cheered. Yes, you heard that right. As Henyard's belongings were hauled out piece by piece, residents clapped, laughed, and even filmed the eviction like it was a festival. Some waved their phones in the air, shouting, "Finally!" Others shouted things too raw to repeat, their anger boiling over into pure celebration. But how did it come to this? How did a mayor, someone sworn to lead and protect her town, fall so far that her own people celebrated her downfall? Insiders claim this wasn't just about politics. It wasn't just about money. It was about secrets, long-buried scandals, bitter betrayals, and mounting outrage that finally exploded into public humiliation. And according to some, this eviction is just the beginning, because if what's being whispered is true, Tiffany Henyard's nightmare is only getting started, and the next chapter could be even darker. For months, the storm clouds over Mayor Tiffany Henyard's career had been building. At first, her rise to power looked unstoppable. She branded herself as a fighter for the people, a woman who had clawed her way to the top with charisma, ambition, and promises of change. But beneath the speeches, beneath the photo ops, cracks began to show. Whispers spread. Scandals brewed. And one by one, the residents of her town turned from admiration to fury. A mayor's rise. Henyard's ascent wasn't ordinary. She positioned herself as a leader who understood the struggles of everyday people. For a while, her community bought into it. Residents believed her when she spoke about fairness, progress, and unity. They cheered her during campaign rallies, waving signs with her name in bold letters. To many, she represented a fresh start. But as time passed, the image of the people's mayor began to unravel. Promises went unfulfilled, controversies piled up, and residents started noticing that while the town was struggling, Henyard herself seemed to be thriving. New cars, lavish outfits, expensive trips, things didn't add up. The controversy zone scandal after another began surfacing. Allegations of misused funds, claims of favoritism in city contracts, reports of staff members being silenced or pushed out. Each revelation chipped away at her reputation. But it wasn't just politics. People accused Henyard of being out of touch with the very residents she swore to represent. At community meetings, her dismissive tone ignited anger. Rumors swirled of backroom deals and cover-ups. To her critics, she wasn't a public servant anymore. She was a ruler who believed the town existed to serve her. The boiling point, what really pushed residents over the edge, was the feeling of betrayal. For years, they'd placed their trust in her, only to watch as she allegedly prioritized her own comfort over the community's needs. While businesses shut down, while potholes tore up the roads, while families struggled with rising costs, Henyard seemed more focused on securing her power and protecting her image. Insiders whispered that even her closest allies began questioning her decisions. Once loyal staffers privately admitted they were frustrated, even disgusted, with what they saw behind closed doors. And then came the breaking point. The eviction. The eviction we spread like wildfire that Mayor Tiffany Henyard was being forced out of her home. The very woman who once stood as the face of authority now faced humiliation in front of her own town. On the day of the eviction, the atmosphere outside her house wasn't somber. It was electric. Residents gathered in clusters, holding up their phones, ready to capture history in real time. The sight of officials carrying out her belongings, furniture, boxes, even personal items was surreal, but the surreal turned into celebration. Cheers erupted. Applause rang out. People shouted, "Justice!" And finally, "She's gone." Some even laughed, clapping their hands like it was a performance they'd been waiting years to see. What should have been a moment of embarrassment for a leader became a victory for her critics, proof, in their eyes, that karma had finally caught up. Why she read the cheers weren't just about one eviction. They were about years of anger boiling over. Residents felt silenced, ignored, and exploited. And now, Watching their mayor face public humiliation felt like a form of justice. For some, it was about accountability. For others, it was revenge. But for nearly everyone there, it was a release, a way to finally express the frustration that had been festering for far too long. The aftermath clips of the eviction spread online. The story went viral. Comment sections filled with mixed reactions, some shocked, others gleeful. Headlines screamed about the cheering crowd as if the whole town had gathered to celebrate her downfall. Insiders say Henyard was furious, accusing her enemies of orchestrating the spectacle. But for her residents, it didn't matter. In their eyes, this was a turning point. A message had been sent loud and clear. No one, not even the mayor, was untouchable. The cliffhanger, but here's where things get even darker. According to insiders, the eviction was only the beginning. Rumors suggest more secrets are about to surface, secrets even more explosive than her financial scandals. Some whisper that the real reason behind her downfall hasn't even been revealed yet. And if those whispers are true, Tiffany Henyard's humiliation isn't over. It's just beginning. The eviction wasn't just an embarrassing scene, it was the match that lit a powder keg. Tiffany Henyard had already been the subject of endless whispers, but once the sight of her furniture being dumped onto the sidewalk went viral, insiders say the floodgates opened. Suddenly, everyone seemed ready to talk: staffers, aides, neighbors, even former allies who had once sworn loyalty. And what they revealed painted a picture darker than anyone had expected. The leaked scandals within hours of the eviction, screenshots and documents started circulating online. Allegedly, they showed shocking misuses of town funds under Henyard's leadership. Residents claimed their tax money had been diverted into mysterious consulting fees, emergency projects, and community development budgets that never materialized. One particularly damning leak suggested she'd spent thousands on personal luxury trips that were billed as official town business. Another report hinted at contracts being handed out to close friends and allies without proper bidding. The leaks spread across Facebook groups like wildfire. "This is why the potholes never got fixed," one angry resident wrote. Another comment read, "She lived like a queen while we struggled like peasants." But the most jaw-dropping leak came in the form of a private text chain allegedly between Henyard and a confidant. In one message, she allegedly wrote, "They can complain all they want. They still pay my bills. I'll always win, whether real or fabricated." The message hit the internet like a grenade. Screenshots went viral, fueling the sense that she wasn't just careless, she was openly mocking the very people who had once supported her. The betrayal then came the twist nobody saw coming. A trusted insider revealed that Henyard's eviction wasn't simply about unpaid bills or missed obligations. According to them, it was fueled by a betrayal from inside her own circle. The source claimed that one of Henyard's closest allies had flipped. After years of silence, this insider had allegedly decided to cooperate with both investigators and the media, handing over files, recordings, and receipts that painted Henyard in the worst possible light. The betrayal shocked residents. For years, Henyard's inner circle had seemed like an unbreakable wall of loyalty. They defended her through every controversy, silenced critics, and painted her as untouchable. But now, insiders whispered that one of those very allies had orchestrated her public humiliation by leaking sensitive details at the exact moment of her eviction. Who was it? A city council member? A longtime aide? Even her closest supporters began side-eyeing each other, wondering who had finally broken ranks. Residents reacted as word of the betrayal spread. The cheers outside Henyard's house took on a new meaning. It wasn't just about celebrating her eviction, it was about celebrating her exposure. Residents felt vindicated, as if the walls of secrecy that had protected her were finally collapsing. Videos from the eviction night show neighbors chanting, "We knew it! We knew it!" Some even carried signs mocking her downfall, with one reading, "No more Queen Tiffany." The mood wasn't just relief. It was rage transformed into triumph. For years, Residents had claimed their voices didn't matter. Now, they were watching the powerful get dragged down in front of their eyes. The emotional backlash, but not everyone was laughing. Some residents described the scene as surreal, even heartbreaking. Seeing a mayor, someone who had once symbolized leadership, reduced to humiliation sparked a complicated mix of emotions. One resident, holding back tears, told a reporter, "I voted for her. I believed in her. And now I don't know if anything she said was ever real." Others saw it as a cautionary tale about power, greed, and betrayal. "This is what happens when leaders forget who put them there," another resident said, shaking their head. Industry and political ripples. Scandal didn't stay confined to the town. News outlets across the state picked up the story, plastering Henyard's eviction across front pages. Headlines like "Mayor evicted as town cheers" and "Leadership in ruins" dominated the cycle. Political commentators warned that the spectacle could ripple beyond her community. One analyst put it bluntly, "When your own people cheer your downfall, you don't just lose power, you lose your legitimacy." Rumors swirled that state officials were now paying closer attention to her finances and decisions. Some even speculated that prosecutors could step in if the leaks revealed criminal behavior. The cliffhanger, the story has twisted into something even more sinister. Tiffany Henyard's eviction wasn't just a personal humiliation, it may have been the result of betrayal from within her own camp. And if that betrayal has already produced leaks, recordings, and receipts, then the next revelation could be catastrophic. Because if insiders are right, the eviction wasn't the end of her nightmare. It was just the opening act, the betrayal. That fueled Tiffany Henyard's eviction had already shaken the town to its core, but what followed turned a local scandal into a national spectacle. The first leaks had painted her as careless and arrogant, but the next wave of revelations exposed something far worse: a deliberate pattern of manipulation, excess, and cover-ups. The avalanche of leaks at first, it was just text messages and whispers. Then came photos, luxury shopping trips during supposed official delegations, snapshots of Henyard at high-end restaurants while the town council begged for funds to fix broken infrastructure. Receipts circulated online, showing thousands spent on hotel suites, spa treatments, and private drivers, all allegedly billed as municipal business expenses. But the most damning document was a leaked audio recording. In the muffled clip, a voice that residents swore was Henyard's could be heard mocking her own constituents. "They'll complain, but they can't touch me. I run this place. If they hate it, they can leave." The audio spread like wildfire. Residents who had once supported her recoiled in disgust. Local news stations replayed it on loop. TikTok creators layered it over footage of her eviction, turning the moment into a viral meme. Suddenly, Tiffany Henyard wasn't just an unpopular mayor, she was a symbol of corruption and arrogance. Her downfall broadcast for the world to dissect. The insider speaks, and then the traitor finally spoke. In an anonymous interview with a major news outlet, the insider revealed why they had flipped. "I was loyal for years. I defended her. But when I saw how she laughed at people's struggles, when I saw her use the town's money like her own, I couldn't take it anymore." The eviction wasn't random. It was the only way to show the truth. The insider claimed they weren't acting alone. They hinted that multiple members of Henyard's circle had quietly turned against her, funneling information to journalists and investigators. In their words, "The walls are closing in, and she knows it." Residents erupted against revelations reignited the fury in town. Protesters gathered outside City Hall, chanting, "No more Tiffany." Residents waved signs reading, "Enough is enough, and we deserve better." The sense of betrayal was palpable. Many said they had once believed in her promises of change, only to realize they had been misled. One resident shouted to reporters, "She robbed us of trust. She robbed us of money. And now we finally see who she really is." Social media lit up with videos of the protests, residents holding mock eviction notices with Henyard's name scrawled across them in red ink. The political fallout scandal's ripples spread far beyond the town. State officials, under mounting pressure, announced they were launching a review of Henyard's financial management. Whispers of potential indictments began circulating, with legal analysts pointing to fraud, misappropriation of funds, and abuse of power as possible charges. Political commentators said bluntly, "This isn't just an eviction anymore. This is a collapse in real time." The shocking reveal, and just when it seemed things couldn't get any darker, the insider dropped their biggest bombshell yet. They claimed to possess a private ledger, a document detailing off the book's financial transactions that allegedly tied Henyard to outside interests. According to the insider, the ledger contained coded entries documenting payments to individuals who had helped protect her position. The implication? That Henyard hadn't just misused funds for herself, she may have been buying silence and loyalty to maintain control. The revelation was explosive. If the ledger existed and if it was real, it meant her corruption wasn't just personal indulgence. It was systemic. One journalist described it as the Rosetta Stone of her downfall. If it surfaces, it could end her career permanently and possibly lead to criminal prosecution. Henyard's response: Henyard, reeling from the avalanche of leaks, tried to fight back. She released a statement calling the allegations fabricated lies and insisting the eviction was a politically motivated attack. In a fiery livestream, she accused her enemies of conspiring to destroy her. "They couldn't beat me at the ballot box, so they staged this circus. Don't believe the hype, this is all a setup." But her words rang hollow. Residents pointed to the receipts, the audio, the insider testimony. For many, her denial sounded like desperation. The world watches me now. The scandal had gone national. News anchors across the country debated her downfall, some calling it a cautionary tale, others mocking it as small-town drama turned reality show. Late-night comedians roasted her eviction with punchlines that trended on Twitter. What should have been a local humiliation had become a global embarrassment. Tiffany Henyard wasn't just a mayor in trouble, she was a headline, a punchline, and a symbol of leadership gone wrong. The cliffhanger: no, the entire town and much of the country waits for the next shoe to drop. Will the insider release the alleged ledger? Will prosecutors step in with formal charges? And perhaps most chilling, who else in her inner circle has flipped? And what more are they hiding? Because if the ledger surfaces and if the rumors about payoffs and cover-ups are true, then the eviction won't be remembered as Tiffany Henyard's biggest humiliation. It will be remembered as the moment her entire career came crashing down for good. The insider's bombshell turned Tiffany Henyard's downfall into a circus that nobody could ignore. The eviction had embarrassed her. The leaks had exposed her. But now the reactions from residents, politicians, and even national figures pushed the scandal into a frenzy. The entire country was watching, and her humiliation was complete. The residents' uproar for the people of her town. The eviction had already been cathartic. But as more leaks spilled into the public eye, their anger transformed into open rebellion. Residents staged nightly protests outside City Hall. Crowds swelled with homemade signs. "No more Tiffany. Evicted from office next. She robbed us blind." Chants of "lock her up" echoed through the streets. Entire families came out, treating the protests like block parties of resistance. Children waved toy gavels. Teenagers filmed skits mocking her downfall for TikTok, one of which racked up millions of views with the caption, "Mayor turned moocher." One elderly resident told a local reporter, "We cheered when she lost her house. Now we'll cheer when she loses her office. We're not stopping until she's gone." Political shockwave politicians in the state couldn't stay silent. Once neutral, now they raced to distance themselves from Henyard. State representatives called for audits of her financial dealings. One senator thundered on the floor, "When leaders abuse power, they don't just betray their office, they betray the people's trust. We cannot stand by." Behind closed doors, whispers spread that the governor's office was quietly monitoring the scandal. If charges surfaced, state-level intervention was almost inevitable. Meanwhile, other mayors in nearby towns rushed to assure their own residents that nothing like Henyard's behavior could happen here. It was political contagion. Her scandal cast shadows on everyone in power. The national media storm, what had started as local outrage, now dominated national headlines. CNN blasted the headline, "Mayor evicted amid corruption scandal." Fox News ran with "Henyard humiliated. Residents cheer." Even satirical shows like The Daily Show jumped in, with comedians joking. Most mayors cut ribbons. Tiffany cut corners. Pundits debated whether Henyard's fall was a cautionary tale or just another example of corruption in politics. Morning talk shows replayed the eviction footage alongside crowd reactions, one host shaking her head, saying, "I've covered politics for decades. I've never seen residents celebrate their leader's humiliation like this." Celebrity pile one. Even celebrities couldn't resist chiming in. Reality TV stars mocked her dramatic exit as if it were scripted for a series finale. One hip-hop artist tweeted, "Mayor got evicted like a deadbeat tenant. Wild." The celebrity attention made the scandal impossible to escape. Hashtags like #Tiffany exposed and #Mayor eviction party trended on Twitter, with memes circulating globally. Tiffany Henyard wasn't just a disgraced politician anymore. She was a cultural punchline. The economic fallout, meanwhile, the financial consequences started creeping in. Local businesses, desperate to save their reputations, began publicly denouncing her. Restaurants put up chalkboard signs reading, "We don't serve Tiffany Henyard." A car dealership launched an ad campaign, "Unlike the mayor, we don't misuse funds." The mockery was devastating, but the financial fallout was worse. Rumors spread that Henyard's assets were frozen pending investigation. Neighbors whispered about unpaid bills, debts piling up, and lawsuits waiting in the wings. The growing fury beneath the laughter and cheers, there was unease. Residents wondered just how deep the corruption went. If Henyard had funneled money, if she had bought loyalty, if she had mocked the very people she served, what else had she done in the shadows? Insiders whispered that investigators were already digging deeper. One journalist hinted on Twitter, "What we've seen is just a tip. What's buried in that ledger will blow the roof off the cliffhanger, and now the world waits." Tiffany Henyard's residents have turned against her. Politicians are distancing themselves. The media is tearing her apart. But the biggest question remains, will the mysterious ledger surface, and if it does, will it reveal corruption so vast that Henyard doesn't just lose her career, but her freedom? Because if the whispers are true, the eviction won't be the most humiliating chapter in her story. The real downfall is still to come. The protests, the eviction, the leaks, it all felt like Tiffany Henyard had already reached rock bottom. But insiders whispered that the real explosion hadn't even happened yet. The mysterious ledger that everyone kept talking about wasn't just a rumor, it was real. And according to those who had seen pieces of it, its contents could burn down everything she'd ever built. The ledger surfaced. First glimpse of the ledger didn't come from prosecutors or journalists. It came from a viral blog post by a whistleblower claiming to be part of Henyard's former inner circle. The post included blurred-out screenshots, names redacted, amounts partially hidden, but enough detail to make one thing clear: Tiffany had been moving money in ways that screamed corruption. The ledger allegedly showed secret payouts to allies who had defended her publicly, unexplained consulting fees tied to shell organizations with no traceable work, cash withdrawals coinciding with high-profile trips, masked as community initiatives. And then came the darkest line, a coded entry marked only as family. Insiders claimed it was a payout to someone very close to Tiffany, a relative she had allegedly paid to stay silent about her dealings. The shocking betrayal, that single word family, flipped the scandal on its head. Who inside her family had been paid off? Who had been complicit? And worse, who had flipped? The whispers spread fast. Some speculated it was a sibling who had grown tired of protecting her. Others said it could have been a cousin who had acted as a go-between for years. But the real bombshell came when a reporter hinted that the family betrayal might have been even closer, a parent figure who had finally had enough. The betrayal wasn't just political, it was personal. Tiffany Henyard wasn't just being sold out by staffers and allies. She was being sold out by her own blood. The public backlash intensifies, and news of the ledger's family entry broke. The town erupted all over again. Protesters didn't just chant "No more Tiffany" anymore, they shouted. Even family flipped. Signs mocked her with phrases like "evicted by blood" and "no honor among thieves." The betrayal became a talking point across every platform. Memes exploded. Tiffany's face photoshopped onto movie posters like The Godfather with the caption, "The family betrays." Twitter threads dissected every public appearance with her relatives, hunting for clues about who had turned on her. The humiliation was unbearable. Tiffany's downfall wasn't just a scandal now, it was a spectacle. Tiffany's desperate spine in a late-night live stream. Tiffany tried to dismiss the ledger as fake. Her voice shook as she barked, "There is no ledger. There are no secret payouts. This is all a coordinated attack from people who are jealous of my success. I am the victim here." But the more she denied, the worse it got. Residents pointed to her body language, the clenched jaw, the darting eyes as proof she was lying. Comment sections filled with laughing emojis, mockingly repeating her words, "I am the victim." Even her own allies stopped defending her. One council member told the press, "We've defended her too long. If the ledger is real, she has to answer for it." The final blow, and then came the cruelest twist of all. The whistleblower promised that the full ledger, names, amounts, everything would be released within days. The internet went wild. Countdowns popped up on TikTok and Twitter. People speculated which names would appear, which allies would be exposed, and how deep the corruption ran. One viral comment read, "This isn't just Tiffany's eviction. This is Tiffany's extinction." The cliffhanger. No, the stage is set for the most devastating chapter yet. Tiffany Henyard has been humiliated, betrayed, and evicted. But if the full ledger drops with names, payouts, and proof of family betrayal, it won't just end her career. It could strip her of her freedom, her legacy, and the last shreds of loyalty she still clings to. Because sometimes, the worst betrayal isn't from rivals or enemies. It's from the ones closest to you. And for Tiffany Henyard, that betrayal might be the nail in her coffin. And now we're standing at the edge of the cliff. Tiffany Henyard's empire has crumbled piece by piece. The eviction, the leaks, the betrayal, and now the whispers of a ledger that could expose everything once and for all. Her own residents have turned her downfall into a celebration. Her allies have fled. And even her family might be the ones delivering the final blow. But the real question is, what happens when the full ledger drops? Will it confirm every suspicion? Will it reveal payoffs, cover-ups, and the shocking names of people who stood by her side while secretly cashing in? Or could it hold something even darker, a secret so big it doesn't just end Tiffany's career, but drags others down with her? Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Tiffany Henyard is a victim of a political witch hunt, or is this the long overdue justice her community deserves? Was her betrayal by family inevitable, or is there still more to the story we haven't seen yet? And most importantly, when the ledger drops, should it be made public for everyone to see, or handed straight to investigators to decide her fate? Flood the comments with your theories, because this story isn't finished, it's only heating up. Smash that like button if you think the truth needs to come out. Subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking twist, and hit that notification bell, because when the ledger finally surfaces, I'll be here breaking it all down. Every page, every secret, every betrayal. Trust me, if you thought Tiffany Henyard's eviction was the end, you haven't seen anything yet.